So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I think this is one of, is this the last timer session? So again, before we even get started, thank you guys for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you for supporting RunSignup and the race day tools as timers. Thank you for being here yesterday, especially when we did the kind of, what do you call it, the cab, the pitching to you guys, like, what do you want to see? It's funny that some people didn't want to say it, and so they waited until dinner and started like firing them off to me at dinner. So, well, maybe that's it. If I got some people south, they would have actually like told us what they really think. So anyways, it was all positive, but we really do appreciate it. I wanted to say that before we got started. So this is the timer business session, and basically the idea here is, and we've done this, I think, every year for the past like 3 or 4 years. We always get different people that have different backgrounds in different aspects of timing or events. And I think at the end of it, most timers feel like this is one of the most valuable sessions they go to, because it's not me or Matt or James telling you about how something should work. It's people talking about how it does work, and not just the RunSignup side of things, but the actual process and implementation, things like that on site. So I am going to start with, and yes, I'm going to read some of this just because I don't want to forget anything. We have Eric Arndt on the end with It's Race Time out of Illinois, and he's mainly Midwest. You creep too far out of the Midwest? Not much. He's focused exclusively on race timing and results. He's been timing since 2007, mainly running races, sprinkling of tries, some cycling, cross country, and open water. And had the pleasure of once certifying a Guinness record, which was we'll talk about that one in a second, because I want to hear what that's all about. And then we have Ryan Walsh with Bryn Mawr, and I feel like I say that every time I'm like Bryn Mawr. So am I saying it? All right, sweet. All right, cool. Racing, and they're in this area. And so they've been in business since 2010. They do pretty much, I think, any kind of timing. Yeah. And then let's see. They also own events, and they've been using RunSignup. They were very early adopters on the RunSignup side. I think it was like, what, 13 or 14 or something like that. Yeah. So he's probably got a pretty good idea of not just where we are, but where RunSignup came from. And so that, and he's been instrumental in, pitching things back to RunSignup over time to help kind of develop some of the path of where timing's gone. And then we had Fred Summers. And so this is like, I don't know, the legend. Like, if there's been like, I don't even want to call people out, like, if you don't know who Fred is, because I feel, and I'm not even reading this right now, because I feel like if it's not in here, you're like, you should be in like Triathlon Hall of Fame. Are you? Because I feel like you should. He doesn't know either. So he's been timing in business for over 30 years. And he does 40 events a year in greater Claremont area, and mainly multi-sport. I think you have a number of other events, but mainly focusing on multi-sport. He has a number of series, and he owns about half of them. He's been using RunSignup for 8 years. But I mean, you've probably hosted national, world, every kind of championship there is in the sport of multi-sport. I mean, again, if you have any questions about timing and where things have come from, gone, and going, I mean, a lot of people get into timing, they buy equipment, and they stay exactly where they started. Prime example of always learning, like always keeping it like new equipment, staying on top of things, and coming to conferences and things like that, and just staying on the tip of the spear of and it's always a pleasure having you around. As someone coming from the tri community, I have a man crush on Fred here. So sorry guys, sorry. I know, sorry. Okay, so before we get started, I want to hear about this Guinness World Record thing. So we're going to start with that because and yeah, so there's a mic here. I think it might have an on off. And the format, we're going to ask some questions, and this is we're basically walking into the woods. We've got a couple paths to follow, but if we go down something that everybody feels like is beneficial, like the drive here is to get these guys to kind of talk about their experiences with what's going on in their area, the industry, their company, so that it maybe helps you and your company. So first off, that has nothing to do with anything. What?
You've been around long enough, you see it all. We certified a Guinness record for the fastest half marathon dressed as a fruit.
Time?
The time.
See, I'm a timer,
right,
and I'm
so
like, what's the time? And he's like, what's the fruit? And I'm like, dang it, that's a better question.
I'd say the time was irrelevant. We just had to go through all the steps with Guinness to validate it. The fruit was a strawberry. The coolest part actually was I have 3 boys. They came home from the library the following year with the Guinness book, and there was a picture on the inside cover of the girl dressed as a strawberry.
That's awesome.
So that was pretty cool. I mean, it was a little picture. Couldn't have been bigger than that. But the record has been since broke many times because I had a whatever you call Google News feed alert related to Guinness records dressed as a fruit. So. It's no longer there. It no longer exists. But if you're feeling up to it, there's a record for everybody out there.
Right on. Well, all right. So now we'll get into it. So now strawberry is the fruit to go with. So I think, and we'll try to pivot off and not talk too much about 2020 and 2021. I think we've all talked enough about those 2 years and everything that happened in the industry. So 2022, obviously, I mean, COVID is not gone. Most places are most municipalities are open for events. But I mean, like I said, I mean, Bob's not here because he got COVID. Like it's still, and that happened on Sunday night or Monday morning. So without getting too much into the COVID side of things, what are the biggest challenges you guys are facing presently in business in general? Not necessarily what challenges do you have with RunSignup or any of the race day tools, but like in business. And we'll start on this side. We'll start with Fred.
Currently, I think our biggest challenge is finding staffing. We're turning away races because we don't have the staff. We have the equipment, but we don't have the staff to send them out. So that's definitely a challenge, both full-time and part-time. I think other challenges that we're facing, some of our races are getting more complicated, like what used to be a sprint triathlon with 1,400 people now is a sprint international duathlon, aquabike, aquathon, and a 5K all thrown in together into one event. So we have basically a 3-ring circus with timing when you have active and passive chips going on at the same time. So it definitely makes timing a lot more challenging. And I think another issue that we're concerned about and working on now is our pricing. Florida is pretty saturated with timers. There's a lot of timers. I thought COVID would shake out a few more. I mean, that would give up, but they're still there and they're putting on a lot of little races and that. But some of our preferred partners where we gave special pricing based on their participant numbers, they've been dropping even a little bit, prior to COVID. So now maybe a 2,000 person race is only getting 800 people and our pricing was based on higher numbers. So now the numbers don't match. We're going to have to come back and adjust our pricing and maybe do add-ons for stuff that we gave for free. So I'm not sure whether that'll trigger some people to start putting out the bid for other people. So that's definitely a challenge that we're concerned about.
It's an age-old one. We probably 75% of our races are under 200 people, and we get a lot of new races every year, or we have a lot of not-for-profits. So the turnover among the staff, we get a new race director every 3 years. So it's educating the race director from how to use RunSignup to making sure that they have a permit for the course, to making sure they go the right way, where we like, you need a lead biker and just marshals at every turn. That's the challenge. And we have over 200 races a year. And we give out pre-race reports from the read. We have our head timers go over everything with them. And yet we still have races that runners are coming in from both directions at the finish line. So that's an age-old problem. It's just dealing with certain race directors are better than others, but that's always a challenge. Staffing is huge there, and educating staff is a big part, especially our head timers. Yeah.
I don't think I have anything new that hasn't been mentioned, but one, and that is, we have a team of 5. We do 4 events on a weekend. We had a lot of date shifting happen throughout 2019 and 2020. So spring races thought they would jump to fall, right, and capture an audience. And so what used to be pretty predictable schedule has moved around a lot on us, and we had to call on other companies, other timers to help fill the gap, because like everybody else, we only have finite resources.
So, I mean, you guys, and show of hands, because again, this is a pretty good snapshot of what's going on everywhere, I would say. Staffing is one of the major concerns. Show of hands. Is that so? How are you guys? And maybe the answer right now is I don't know, or I'm getting lucky. But like, how are you guys combating that, or how are you approaching the staffing issue? Where are you finding staff? Are you trying to find employees? Are you trying to find 1099 contract or weekend warriors, or however you manage it? If they're not 1099, they're still employees. But what's your process?
I'm a horrible use case. I was able to maintain our entire staff coming out of 20 and 21.
That's
so I don't have a great answer. I haven't lived that, so I'm gonna defer to these guys.
All right.
I'm a teacher by day, so I employ half the building. They Bryn Mawr Racing, but none of us are full-time timers, so it's we have a group. Carl's is one of my head timers, and he had a network of people he trained with, and that brought in about 15 people that way. So that helps. And then, hey, do you have any friends? We went the Indeed route. Not good. We tried that one. That didn't work well.
Well, I'm hoping that we're going to get some ideas from you all. We're reaching out to the colleges. The high schools start up in Florida in a couple of weeks, so we're going out to the robotics classes. We've been communicating with cross-country coaches. We just haven't had any luck. We get someone in there, but you can just tell they don't have potential. It's just it's a different market now, so it's very challenging. And plus, even trying to find a full-time director of timing to get it off my shoulders, it's been a challenge, because either the salary range is way out, or we just don't get the responses, even putting it on a major job hunt website. But I'm hoping you all have some ideas of how you find your timers.
With that being said, I mean, has anybody else had or feel like you've had success, and not like just, if you have had success finding people, where you are, what, where you're looking, how you're asking, what you're asking?
Oh, so I have a good time. We're growing staff wise. So I have a good amount of trainees right now, but they're my friends and my running club, and they're interested in learning it, and they don't want to work all the time, and they don't want to time all the time, but they want to be available to help the brand, help the company if it's needed, and make a little bit extra money to buy extra running shoes. So I'm not making them commit to every Saturday and having to pick up a bunch of races. Like, I'm trying to keep all those on the main timers, but these little one-offs and two-offs, like they're learning, they're training, and they're growing, and they're also being ambassadors for our company, because when they're not working, they're out still wearing all their staff gear or whatever that they get for free.
Gotcha. Anybody else have success? And we know for a fact, Shelly put out a survey. It was a while ago, I mean, a few months ago, and that was pretty much one of the #1 hurdles for all of you that responded to that survey. I don't have that survey data here with us, so it's not surprising that is something that everybody brings up. Yep, Rob, you got something? I will say that if you've got volunteers, if you're also a race director and have volunteers, every once in a while you have that like super volunteer, and you can tap that person, say, hey, you want to make some money, or you want to come over and train, and like pay the person for training, obviously, and ease them in. So that's one option.
I know two things that I've done is we all, like most of us, we all have full-time jobs. I'm in sales, and I tapped our IT guy, who's our mailing manager, because I think it's important to have a sales background because you need to deal with clients. He's very good with data, and I have made him run his first 5K. That's kind of one of the stipulations. If you work with us, you have to run a 5K because you need to know what the experience is like. You don't,
Right.
You just have to finish. You don't have to have a crazy time. But so he did that, and he's actually leading now because we have a couple events through the year where we have 2 races at the same time, same day. And he's done really good with that. The other one, maybe a little controversial for some timers, is Don Stoner is like my mentor, runner side racing. And so we work together. So September 9th, the 8th, his son is getting married. I'm doing his race. He helped me on my race. And it's great to have a qualified timer that knows everything. He knows more than me. And hey, I need this help on this race. He comes over and does it for me. So maybe if you got a timer in your area, it's a trust factor. It's maybe controversial, but it's worked really well. And
Cool.
he was supposed to be here this week, but he had something come up last minute. So
yeah. So you kind of jogged my memory on that, and partnering. I mean, if you've been coming to the Timer Tip Tuesdays, we've talked about building that support network, and knowing who your IT person is, your hardware person, but also having, friends, not just us, but friends that you can call to either complain about the person that says, what's my time? Or, hey, what would you do in this scenario? Or borrow equipment, or rent equipment at a discounted rate. And I know I've had success. I'm sure you guys have similar people, right? All of you have similar people in your area that, like, maybe it's like, hey, do you have staff? I've got a timer, but I need 2 extra set of hands. And so you'll call on those people and you hire them, and then vice versa. When you feel like that's pretty fair. Yeah. So in terms of once you find the people, training. So how are you going about the training process and onboarding? Because I do think that's another hurdle that people said, like, you can find the right person or find a person that seems like the right person. How are you guys trying to onboard these? And again, Eric, if you
No, I can still answer
okay,
that.
perfect.
So we maintain a pretty extensive help files that we've built
Cool.
For our staff. So everything from what it looks like when you get started, how to connect the boxes, how to everything, to ultimately every time a timer has a question, we ask them to log it, right? And now we have an extensive list of frequently asked or dumb things that might happen that you can resolve quickly. So everyone has access to that, and we've kind of built their own little knowledge base, which has been real beneficial.
Nice. And what platform are you using or Excel or
Word docs?
nice? Yeah.
Like a ton. So every race has its own folder. That way, any of our team members can pick up and look at an event and have all the information for that event, including the software file, the participant list if needed, and all the notes go in a single folder. So theoretically, if something happens on race day, any person can jump in and have everything they need. So to answer your original question, all those files are also in Dropbox as well.
Gotcha.
I'll start out with we have manuals too for how to do everything. We use RunScore and timing and scoring. But I've also done screencasts. Being a teacher, I've had to do some virtual teaching that way. So screencasts seem to be effective, but everyone learns differently. The best way is getting them with another head timer race day and have them push all the buttons. And because you can't simulate a race, something happens different in every single race. They need to see that for themselves. Once they get a few races under their belt, they feel confident, they can go out on their own. If they still are scared, we have Splash Top or Team Viewer. We can help them a lot. We'll save them on race day.
Well, I'm just hoping I'll have someone to train. Now, currently, I mean, it's hard to train someone at a complicated race because things can go south quickly and but it's good for them to observe. And like normally if we have a 5K or something, you think that's going to go smooth. It's one where you can sort of let them get hands on. But what I've been doing is I watch a lot of videos and YouTube videos and all the webinars and that. And the ones I think are useful, I will save in a Word document. So I have a list of all the stuff, especially when you get into the interface between like the race result, the race result hardware and bringing it into the various scoring programs, which is the biggest challenge. I have various videos in that. So when I do get someone to train, I can right away get them onto that. But we have our lead timer, like once we're trying to assemble a group now, that once we get 4 or 5 people, we're going to bring them into the office and have like a training class with them.
Maybe a tip for others, Google Remote Desktop is free. We have that for all of our timers, and if they have any questions, I can jump in and see their screen. So if you're not leveraging that, that's a good one.
Yep. And another piece of this is that we found effective years ago. I haven't done it in a while, and that is once you have a group of people that might be interested, it's not free for you, but bring them into a central point all together and sit down and train them. We used to have it was like a middle January weekend that was the annual training weekend where we brought in all of our primaries, all of our secondaries, all of the new people. And it was kind of a hokey thing where we were doing team building exercises and stuff like that. I know you guys were probably there at one point years and years ago. Yeah, it was a really positive experience because not only were you learning about the hardware, software, and just day of general timelines, like something simple was like how to fold pennant flags or tear down mats or coil cables, things that we're not even thinking about right now. We're thinking about like how to time, like how to punch buttons on a computer. But the reality is there's so much more to it in the training side for us. And you see that coax going around somebody's elbow and you're just like crying inside. And so everybody in the room's like, oh. So, but finding a weekend that maybe you're free, and I realize some of us have races all year long, but usually there's a December, which December is usually rough, but January or February weekend that you can plan out in advance and have the majority of your people on site and build that team together. So, I don't know, it could be really helpful if and when you find those people that you're looking for.
My company used to do a timer Olympics, and it was a competition. And so we would do all sorts of silly things like, so you can put up an inflatable with 2 people fastest. We'd have timed the event. And it was really fun team building exercise, but it helped people learn how to get stuff done effectively and efficiently. So you do all sorts of stuff like set up the straightest corral with the pennants and the tape and everything like that. And our owner would come down and grade them. But we would just set out, we had a park next to our office. We just do this Olympic day. It was a lot of fun.
Right on. There were a couple of questions. Did you guys have questions as well? No? We covered? Okay. Suzanne? Or
do your employees set up the equipment? This is a new learning curve for our employees because we went to the little bitty Nilapse boxes. They can carry those now. So is that in your timing protocol or, what they are expected to do? Because there's so many segments. I'm not talking about the finish line. That's a given. But
so,
yeah.
Would that be a yes? Yeah.
Okay.
So I think across the board, most timers are expected to set up all of their own equipment.
Okay. I mean,
Yep.
obviously we're from a different school, so
Yeah.
it's always been set up for us. So,
Yeah.
okay. Thank
Usually
you.
a production, and I think I'll speak for most of these guys when with most, and you guys might be the exception just because you own almost every single race that you're timing. But in most instances, there's a timing company and a production company. And the production company is setting up all of the infrastructure, barricades, fencing, arches, bike racks, buoys, and the timing company is throwing mats or loops down, timing equipment, and maybe generators or things like that. And so the timing company or the timing team, if it's within the same company, would be expected to put out all of that. Say that's a fair assessment? Yeah, just because the microphone's over there, I figured I would take that one.
Bring like 100 bike racks down, 25 barricades in the trailers. We work with them to set that up. So normally we bring an ops person that can help set up timing equipment, all that too, but they're responsible for setting up the bike racks.
Yep.
You know, for bringing in transition structure.
Yeah, I'm with Brian at Brimar, and one of the things we did this past year that was really great, we had a very good head timer. They had their first child. So, and you know, your crews get in the seasons of life where, you know, kids get in the way and stuff like that. So Pat was cutting back. He's like, I'm done. And Ryan threw out there, like, how about you become our support desk? So for a couple bucks, he's available on a Saturday or a Sunday. And if Ryan's working an event as well, or I or the other guys are all working and one of the newer guys needs help, they just call up Pat, who's sitting at his kitchen table, gets on Splash Top, helps them get through the issue because he has the experience to deal with it. It makes life a lot easier. And then we're at a site and we're not having to answer those calls.
Right. That's a really good point. Because once you get that, once you have someone trained, I mean, they're very valuable. And so just keeping them, and ironically enough, I'd put $1 down that says you keep them on. And then at some point, like you said, the season of life comes back and they're like, you know what? I'm still up to snuff with all of this stuff. So hey, I'm available again. You know, kids are on the swim team and it's just practice day.
I'd say keeping your team members happy is more than just monetary, right? So it's having conversations with them, understanding the types of events they prefer to go to, so they're not assigned to an event that they don't like. And I also, what's that? All right. So I'm always cognizant of what each of our team members prefers to be at, and also running past them if there's new events. Hey, is this something that be in your wheelhouse? Would you like to do this? People want to feel a part of the team, right? So,
And how far they're willing to travel.
Absolutely.
Some people really don't like being on the road and others love it.
So my question would be just, you know, of course, you got smaller events, you've got race day check-in, you've got on-site registration. How does everybody kind of juggle that? I mean, sometimes it's just myself and one of my kids. Sometimes Sean's with us. You know, it's just kind of, because sometimes that gets a little overwhelming. And I just want to hear some feedback from.
Well, yeah. If you guys want to take that one, for what tools are you using? Let's go with this. What tools are you using on site, and how are you managing that rollout with how many staff?
So on-site event staff for us is typically one, unless there's some other obscure thing going on, but it's typically one. Our timer is expected to get there 1.5 to 2 hours before the race starts. They set up the finish line area, get that all set up. Triathlon or running? Running race. You know, at that point, they're training volunteer staff, however they're planning to do distribution at that point. They're expected to be ready to go 1 hour to 30 minutes before the race starts. They're troubleshooting volunteer staff at that point, making sure distribution and registration is going well. Hopefully everything's online and they're not entering any paper apps. That gives them time to finish that. Starting the race on time. And then hopefully after that, that's pretty minimal after the race starts typically. Did I answer your question?
Just thinking, just in general, like, you know, for us, obviously, we're trying to train the race director the best we can to do check-in or dynamic bib assignment or whatever we're doing. But sometimes that's always a challenge. There's not enough of you to go around, and I just wondered how everybody else does it. So.
I like how you guys are on opposite sides of the room too. So like, it's like mommy and daddy are fighting and everybody's in between. Yeah. Yeah.
Typically, we'll send two to a race there, but it's the week of. The head timer will reach out that Monday Here's a pre-race report. Here's the password to get in. We use race day check-in. We use QR codes. Print out the QR code. So you have that for race day registration. Have your volunteers, a couple of them. If it's a 100-person race, you might need 2 people to download the app. That's all they need. Watch our short YouTube video. Now I got updated again because the app's been updated again.
Hey, we had written our talks and it updated, and so we had to redo our
Yeah.
talks with some posts.
And hopefully you arrive race day and the volunteers like, okay, what do I do? Okay, here comes our first customer. You shadow them behind them. That's it. And then you walk away and you check in a few times while you're setting your finish line up that way, or your secondary timer. I have a secondary timer that will kind of babysit them in case they seem like, yeah, this is not the strongest set of volunteers. But most of the time they tend to get it that way. I'd say usually put the older people as the race marshals, put the kids as a check-in app. Those kids are fast.
Have you had a good success out of the YouTube video that you share with race directors?
We also send them a printed report with screenshots and that. So hopefully between the two, it's covered. It's redundant, but hopefully there's a visual and there's also, you can read one. So it works most of the time, but we always have to have a few mystery bids.
We always send, a minimum of 2. It just depends what we're doing. But the key thing is you need to know your race director. I mean, there's race directors that have a registration volunteers that's on top of everything. We have one person we work for with multiple events, and they have like the worst data possible. They're missing date of birth, and no matter what we do, they're actually slowly transferring some of their events over to RunSignup, but it's just a nightmare. And there we want to have someone there because we know a problem with registration is going to create a problem on the back end with timing. And they let people change at the last minute. They go in the wrong waves. I mean, we just dread it. And I have timers say, I will not do one of their events again. But unfortunately, it's business and you have to do it, but it's working with the people and know exactly what they need. So you're not surprised when you get there on race morning or the night before and find out that they have all these issues with registration that are going to become major issues. And a lot of times the race director treats you like you're their second race director. They're getting you involved with all sorts of things, especially when you have a lot of experience. Like you're not even the timer, you're just there to help them. And so it's putting your boundaries, like I'm here to time your race. I can't tell you how to set up your bike course and run course on race morning. So those are things we try and eliminate leading up to the race. So we're not dealing with that on race day.
I think some really good points in there, just to reiterate what was just said, is communicating with your race director in advance. I've met some timers who just have shown up and with a CSV file. And I mean, personally, I won't send out a proposal without having a conversation on the telephone, because number one, I want to make sure you're a real race. And number two, that you understand what we're talking about and the scope of service and the expectations and everything like that. But I mean, we send 1 to 2 people depending on the race. I mean, if it's 6,000 person race with, tons of splits, we'll send a bigger team. But yeah, I will say, if the number of people that you're bringing is likely directly related to how many splits there are that are not available online. So, or how far they are away from the start finish line. So for those of you that, don't have SIM cards in your decoders, that are having to manually babysit those and pull USB sticks or something like that, you're going to need more people, right? I mean, if for some reason your modem in a decoder goes down, you've just added more people that are probably going to be at that event, or you're just not going to have those splits until after the race, which as a timer is not always the best move. And if your expectation is that you're doing packet pickup for the people, write that into your contract. Bill for it. I don't know, and I'm not going to ask the question, how much do you bill for, or how much do you pay people? But the reality is, take what you're going to pay a staff member and add whatever 50% markup, so that for your time and energy, you're also getting paid for this. But that way you can dedicate a resource to packet pickup. Now, when that's over, you now have somebody else there. Now, again, we just went over the fact that we're all looking for people. So getting additional resources can be more challenging.
Chris brought up a good point about having conversation with your race director. So how many have timed a triathlon before? right? So at the end of every swim, every race director walks over and says, "Are everybody out of the water?" And I really got sick of that question, right? Because if everybody wasn't out of the water, it's too late, right? So, so, years ago, we created a tablet and we hand it to the emergency staff, and it keeps a live list of everybody in the water sorted by the time they went in the water, and also has emergency contact information. So look for opportunities like that to just provide a little extra benefit. Now, every emergency staff has a list of everyone in the water, the time they entered, and the emergency contact information. We don't have to get involved, but you're also delivering a service to them that will keep you a little more sticky too.
And if it's something you've built out custom, I just go back to, these are services you're providing.
Definitely.
If you go somewhere, like if you're going to go put on an event or to a concert and you get another service, you're paying for that thing. So if you're building something like that out, or you've built something and you can provide it, line item. I mean, so many times they're like, this is my price. Like, cool. Well, what if this? They're like, that's still my price. I'm like, well, okay, you're doing more work now. So don't forget the time that you're spending, even on Monday or Tuesday, training people. Like, if that's your part of your job, make sure that's baked into your scope of service and your compensation for the event.
Absolutely. But yeah, to your point, I mean, find as many of those things as you can, right? To not only differentiate yourself, but those are easy things, right? A tablet with live view, those are easy things to be able to give.
Helpful as far as setting expectations for event organizers. If you have this itemized, maybe they can't afford, to hire you to manage your packet pickup or do whatever, but it'll help new race directors realize that they do have to be responsible for these other areas maybe, and it could help them with, their growth as an event organization as well.
We've been stuck inside. Matt can do his morning jog right now.
Thanks,
Get your
Matt.
steps.
So
Yeah,
I
go
just
start,
wanted to
Marge.
kind of hit on what you said, Matt. I don't think that as timers and event organizers, we go into a proposal or looking at things in full scope as in terms of the equipment that we're providing, the realm of coordinators and staff and all of the time and energy that's put into it. So the things like charging for the Chromebooks at registration, or timing, or charging for the kiosk, the results kiosk. We put a lot of time and effort and energy into changing our COVID policy into like, how can we switch this into something that we can present to our customers so we hand sanitizing stations. They are result kiosks now, like they're Chromebooks, but it's something that we shifted into that we should be able to charge for. And I think that it's something that we're not building into our front end proposals that we should definitely look at in the scope of things and try to get our money back in on the back end.
And to that point, obviously everyone's pricing is going up for everything. I think we've talked about that, whether you've been in the race director meetings or timer meetings, we've touched on that, like tag prices are going up, hardware prices are going up, data prices are going up, staff prices are going up, travel costs are going up. And so when you're doing this, everybody this is not in our industry only, right? Like everyone's prices are going up. And so if you're going to take a moment to do something like you're talking about, you can quite literally take your current pricing structure, leave it, delete out all the additional items, and just put them at the bottom as additional things. So you haven't really changed your price. It's just now, in addition to what we were doing, we're a la carting the other things so that you're going to generate more revenue. And if they don't want them, and we provided this, I personally, I was like, hey guys, all of our prices went up. We doubled our production prices, doubled. And I said, you have two choices. We can do everything that we did last year, prices double, or we can bring all the equipment and you can set it up. The price is the same. Because now I don't have staff, I don't have, and we're still there timing, we're still there doing, and you'll have a race director that will be there to help support, or a equipment manager or whatever. Kind of sounds like an ops manager that you do. But that was we don't want to do this, but we don't have a choice, because a lot of us are providing a lot more equipment. Like timing is timing. It's not a finish line arch. Like, how many of you guys are building out structure, whether it be an arch or truss or fencing or, right, exactly. I mean, and you're hired for timing, so just keep that in mind when you're doing it. I think at this point, I mean, we've covered a number of topics that have been listed in that email or that survey that went out. Are there any other questions or concerns that you guys have that you'd like to float out and have these guys talk through? Or do you guys have anything that, yeah.
Beyond staff, volunteers. I mean, volunteers this year for us, we actually had to cancel a half distance race because we had 20 volunteers signed up 2 weeks out from the race. And we were offering money. I mean, massive, I say massive amounts of money, $500 for water stations to cheerleading teams and dance teams and, Little League baseball to people who normally want money to go travel and stuff. And they were just, nah, it's just not what we're into. Like, obviously we've all felt that, but what are some things that you found to help to get more volunteers, if anybody has?
Well, I will say there's less volunteers on the timing side than on the event production side. So rarely, I mean, I don't know if personally, I'm not using as many volunteers, if any, timing wise. Or are you guys the ones finding the volunteers for packet pickup? I guess that's a good starting place. Or for the race. Or I guess a number of people in here are producing their own races before we go down a production path, since we're on the timing side. No, you're fine. You're fine. I just want to make sure that we're. Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's a 10-second delay.
So I think the volunteers is the problem we all have. And it's, I mean, the sad part is you have very few volunteers. They're almost all groups you're paying or making a donation or grant to and stuff like that. We use a lot of that, because we have a lot of our own events. So we do a lot of race credits for athletes, especially for the tougher positions and stuff like that. So we basically give them $10 an hour in race credits if they come out and help. But aid stations, it's always been groups, but it's becoming more of a challenge. A lot of it's just developing those relationships. I mean, as soon as the schools reopen back, in Florida in another week, we go after them because we have the HOSA groups, the robotics, we have some Girl Scout groups. A lot of them during the summer go on sort of hiatus. And if you don't have a good staff person with the volunteer group, they just sort of close down during the summer. So it becomes more challenging. But once school starts up, we usually have an abundance from all the schools within like a 15-mile radius. But again, it's going to cost you money. But
how are you tracking that? How are you tracking those credits? Because I'm sure people are providing the same.
Yeah, it's something we're working on now because it's also really an expense. So we want to expense it off. Our volunteer coordinator creates a spreadsheet. But what we do is we don't want to give race credits to someone handing out water. The race credits are going to go someone in a key position. They're in transition area. They're a course marshal or something like that. We really don't even like giving them for registration because we can usually find a volunteer for that. It's critical race points, but it adds up. I mean, it may be, I don't know how many hours, but there may be a dozen athletes working. It's really hard to get athletes to give something back to the sport. I mean, you try and tell them it's like a bank. You can't keep taking money out without putting something back in. But athletes, I mean, they'll trip over themselves to go volunteer for an Ironman race and pay for lodging and everything, but they won't come out of their backyard and work 2 hours when you're really desperate and come out. So it's a challenge that we're all, having to face. But unfortunately, you just have to, every year, our volunteer budget goes up and up. And it's just something we have to do. And the number of volunteers, it seems we were lucky. We made a lot of changes because of COVID when it's pretty much self-serve everything. So when Florida is sort of a wild state where it got back to normal quicker than a lot of other states, but we didn't we brought back fewer volunteers to like aid stations and stuff like that. We learned how to get a little bit leaner with volunteers. But it's definitely a challenge, and right up to the morning of the event with cancellations and stuff like that, and just dealing with it. So it's tough.
We lean on our running club for some of our own events there, but again, going to the well too many times, it's tough. So I offer them comped in the races that we don't need as many volunteers for. That tends to help too. And again, yeah, we lean on the high schools too for, well, I see a lot of directors lean on the high schools for National Honor Society hours and things like that.
And it's easier to lean, like if you are going to, bring in some of those groups at whatever an hour, it's easier to lean when you also, bring in staffing. Like they can lead into staffing roles at times too. I'm sure that's where most of us are finding staff.
We actually had a couple of groups that started as, volunteer groups, and then their coordinators led into almost a voluntary staff position. So they were able to come in and coordinate those groups. So you have, 6 or 8 or 10 that may not know what's going on, but they have been there in that position, those coordinators. And then we can do monetary, contributions to their clubs or groups or whatever entity that they're with. And that's been very productive, just having that repeat lead, that volunteer coordinator that comes in as a whole and just organizes whatever group it is, track, club, HOSA, any of those type of entities. So that's been great.
Cool. Well, can we get a round of applause for our panel? Thank you guys. We really appreciate your time, your expertise. So we do have, I know we've not been doing this in between each session, but we do have a 15-minute break. There is the closing town hall downstairs in the grand ballroom from 2:15 to 3 o'clock. And then following that from 3 until 4:30 on the second floor mezzanine is the final reception. So again, before we leave, I just again wanted to sincerely thank all of you, not just you three, but everyone for number one, taking the time and coming, for supporting RunSignup and the race day team. It really does mean a lot that you're here. So I know a number of people have come up to all of us and said, thank you so much for answering our phone calls. Oh my gosh, sorry to bother you so much. That's what we're here for. Like we're there. Our support team is there on the weekends. We are there Monday through Friday for you. Sure, we get some weird questions. It's sometimes fun to answer the weird questions. So again, it's true because we actually get to think. It's not like click that button. So don't hesitate to reach out if you need support. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have ideas. I think you've heard both James and Avery talk about somebody said this thing once to me, and now it is a feature, right? So it's how it works and how all of our technology is alive, right? None of it is static. None of it is done. The moment it's done, it's being sunset and shipped out. So again, we just really appreciate everything that you guys give back to us and being here and having races on our platform.
Roger Bradshaw once said he hasn't had an original feature he's created for Race Director in its entire history. Every single feature has come from his customers. And it's the same thing for us. Everything comes from our customers.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. And if you do call on the weekend and get crisp, and it sounds super, super windy, it's because he's on his boat.
And I'm not actually on support, and you're calling my personal phone. But I'll still answer.
Thank you, Art.
Yeah, thank you guys again.